When Battlefront 2 came out in 2017, I was pleased. There was way more content in this game than there was in the 2015 predecessor. There was more stuff, more modes, more maps, eras. It had something for everyone in terms of accommodating all types of Star Wars fans. But at the beginning, if you would have told me 2 years later they're still just majorly updating the game, adding new modes, new maps, new eras, constantly making tweaks and changes, I would have been surprised. Back then, I fully expected, like 2 years later, a Battlefront 3 to come out alongside another installment of the Star Wars episodic films. But about a year ago or so, it slowly started to dawn on me that this is the bread and butter. They're just pumping so much shit into this game. New squad system, Capital Supremacy, Extraction, Clone Wars era stuff, content for new movies. And I thought to myself, Battlefront 2 has one hell of a bright future ahead of itself. Now, from this point moving forward, I have no idea what's in store for the game. This is pure speculation. I am not privy to any information whatsoever. But I'm really curious what's going to be coming after the Rise of Skywalker update that's slated for a December release. If the past 2 years are any indication of what the future holds, and I like to think that it is, then we'll be getting a lot more stuff. And obviously that is a big crossing fingers, crossing toes kind of hope, but to me it just feels that way. And what would I like to see more of? I'm a broken record, maps and modes, but it's true. I would love to have more original trilogy maps, specifically Capital Supremacy OT maps. And obviously that's because I'm a original trilogy fanboy asshole. But it's true, I would like to have more original trilogy maps, and specifically maps that surround iconic locations. I know we get to play on Tatooine, I know we get to play in Mos Eisley, but man, I want a Mos Eisley Cantina map. I want a map that at least involves the actual Mos Eisley Cantina that we see in the films, right? Stuff like that. Iconic locations, iconic scenery. Now, in a perfect world, in my perfect world at least, and I've talked about this before, so I apologize, you probably heard me say this, I'd like to make my own maps. I spent nearly a decade making my own maps in Counter-Strike and Day of Defeat, and I hosted my own server. And what better way to ensure the longevity of Battlefront 2, and maybe ease a little bit of the developer work, than to allow community input, community modification, community map making. The amount of content that would be produced for this game by fans and then potentially uploaded to a private server would be astonishing. People would make maps of all sorts of stuff. You'd have goofy maps, you'd have, somebody on a stream the other day mentioned Dexter Jettster's Diner. I would absolutely play a map like that, but obviously the development team, even if they wanted to, they probably wouldn't be able to make that. But hey, some Star Wars fans, some Battlefront 2 fans, some Battlefront 2 players might want to make something like that, right? That'd be neat. But I keep thinking about the past 2 years and how much of a surprise the amount of stuff, the amount of content that we've gotten has been to me. I was a little cynical at the beginning, as probably a lot of you were as well. I thought 2 years later, like I said, we'd get a Battlefront 3 and Battlefront 2 would go by the wayside, but it doesn't seem that way. We're closing out the Skywalker saga, we're closing out the saga films, and Battlefront 2 is still there on the tip top of the spear, with additions coming constantly. And will that slow down after the Rise of Skywalker update? Maybe. It's probable. It's likely, but maybe not. The Battlefront 2 player base is bigger than ever. The developers are still elbow deep in a pile of Star Wars. In the past 2 years, there has been no indication that this train is slowing down. And that's all we have to go by, right? The past 2 years. And if I had to guess, that trend will continue. Battlefront 2 will continue to get more and more content, more and more eras, potentially Mandalorian stuff, more Clone Wars stuff, more OT, more sequel, more prequel stuff. And the game will continue to grow, the game will continue to thrive, the game will continue to evolve and change, accommodate more players, accommodate more fans, and be a Star Wars game that people look back on 10 years from now with great nostalgia, just as they do with the original Battlefront 1 and Battlefront 2.